death, death, die, your friend died, despair, death, sadist, pain, death. If I were to pick just one feature that I absolutely love in games, it would be the narrative. To me, narrative is what makes a game go from entertaining to a work of art, from a piece of media to something we connect with, and from a game to the game. Hi, my name is Maria Gomes and I'm the narrative designer/writer for our indie game dev studio, Barking Beagle Studios. If you haven't watched Buried Within Clays teaser trailer already, go do that. Your views mean happy developers. Not me just begging for views. I think this is not an unpopular opinion at all, and the game industry seems to think so too. We've gone from making games with barely no story at all to games on which this story can be converted into books. Plural. And please don't kill me, I know there are a lot of retro games with amazing stories, I'm personally a fan of all of these. We kind of went in a circle with narrative. The point is, if there's one thing people love about games nowadays, it's their narrative. And that's just peachy, because if you haven't noticed already, this is a narrative devlog. Coincidence? I think not. So if you enjoy talking about narrative in video games, grab some popcorn, get a comfortable pillow, and soothe yourself along in this lullaby of my 12 euros mic voice. So what can I say about the narrative of our still in development game, Buried Within Clay? Actually, more than you expect. Although not everything is fully settled, the narrative is something that we took some time to discuss amongst ourselves. So to recap, what's the main story of the game? As a college archaeology student, our journey begins with the main character in the middle of a field trip in Iraq. You and your colleagues have been investigating an old site of Sumerian value when one of you came across a tablet detailing the location of an undiscovered site. Having traveled there with the rest of the team, you have made a major discovery regarding a presumably large palace that has become sunken beneath the ground. This is probably why no one had found it yet. That and because this is a game. Now that this site has been marked as a major archaeological discovery, your field trip has been cancelled and a professional team called to examine the area. However, you were not invited, rude, and now you and your colleagues have spent the last couple of weeks just idly waiting for your plane back home. But that palace though, that thing is so juicy you know you want it. This is where the game begins with you and your friends making reckless plans to enter this important site the last day before the professionals come in. What you were not expecting was to become trapped inside the palace, separated from each other, thousands of feet underground. If only someone could hear you. A very pertinent question, one which I have absolutely no idea how to answer, so I asked our project's leader, Diogo Mendonça. This is what he said. Yeah. Which is a very good explanation, you know. Inspiration comes in the most marvelous ways, doesn't it? Oh, and he did say this after that, and I quote, "When coming up with the idea, I was listening to this song and it made perfect sense to use Sumeria as a setting, as the core gameplay of the game is archaeological-like exploration of its worlds. It's also a setting that we really don't see many games tackle, despite being the oldest setting of mankind." And I do agree with him. I personally live for interpretations of the Greek, Norse, and Egyptian cultures, but the Sumerian one is one that I don't see quite often, especially in video games. Which is kind of weird, being it that it's supposed to be the first civilization ever and all. But the thing that sold me the most when Diogo presented his idea was the mention of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I know is what y'all are here for after watching the teaser trailer. You just want to know about Gilgamesh. Let me give it to you. Before we start simping on a man of almost 5,000 years ago, I just want you to understand the main themes for our narrative. Above all, just like Outer Wilds, we wanted the game to be uneasy. Being in the situation you're in, you're bound to feel some uncomfortable feelings, and there's really no way to escape them except dealing with them. Feelings such as dissociation, dealing with death, losing purpose, are all feelings we're aiming for in this game, creating a narrative that allows you to explore them in a consequential way. I'll detail each more as we go through the next sections. Speaking of which, the narrative for our game can be divided into 4 parts: the Epic of Gilgamesh, the workers, the British expedition, and the college students. Let's go through each one separately. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a story composed of an assortment of texts translated from various clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia. It has been told and written across centuries, with the most complete recovered version being the standard Babylonian version, written somewhere between the 13th and 10th centuries BCE. This version comprises 12 sequential tablets detailing what is to be believed the first written story ever. Now, the Epic of Gilgamesh is an insanely captive story that portrays some of the beliefs and values and some of the history of the ancient Mesopotamian people. And it's also one I had absolutely no idea about before working in this game. So sometimes working is fun. While I would absolutely love to go through the entire epic, today I'm just gonna focus on some of the things we took from it. So bear with me while I skip over a lot of sections of the story. So, spoilers ahead. I do recommend that you go read the transcriptions by yourself or watch this marvelous video by the YouTuber Fig Tree. It's just wonderful. There is a lot that can be taken from this epic, but the thing that resonated with me the most, and I believe the rest of the team, was the relationship between the main heroes and the consequential journey of Gilgamesh after the death of Enkidu. See, I told you we would get there. The epic begins with Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, being described as a great king that fairly often abused his power. Created as almost a perfect being and hero of great deeds, Gilgamesh was also arrogant and oppressive to his citizens, often conducting himself as one of a kind, with no one to contest his person. The gods, bewildered by the constant complaints of the people of Uruk, ask Aruru to create an equal to his stormy heart and let him be a match for each other so that Uruk may find peace. And so, Aruru pinches off some clay and throws it into the wilderness, creating Enkidu, a wild furry man with immense courage and the strength of Ninurta. In this way, Gilgamesh and Enkidu are synonyms of strength, meant to compete with each other and halt the wrongdoings of Gilgamesh and show him that there's someone who can actually stop you. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu are not only matches in strength, if you know what I mean. Truly, although the epic never directly tells us that they're lovers, it does seem to be the case in a lot of the passages, and our team chose to interpret their relationship as a romantic one. After befriending, Gilgamesh and Enkidu indulge in a couple of adventures that later result in the death of Enkidu as a punishment from the gods. It's from this point on that the epic really focuses on concepts of death, dealing with your mortality, and losing the ones you love. The death of Enkidu is a very heartbreaking one, and tablet number 8 is rather difficult to read due to the tragic monologue of Gilgamesh upon seeing one he loved so much dead. Gilgamesh, heavily distraught by the death of Enkidu and fearing that one day it too shall come for him, departs on a journey to find Utanapishtim, the one immortal man, and asks that he reveal the secret of immortality to him. It's during this journey, in a conversation with the goddess Siduri, that we learn more about the mourning of Gilgamesh for Enkidu and what led his fear to grow so much. 6 days and 7 nights I mourned over him, and would not allow him to be buried until a maggot fell out of his nose. I was terrified by his appearance, I began to fear death, and so roamed the wilderness. This section of the epic is one that I absolutely adore, and in some versions contains one of my favorite quotes by Siduri that I think absolutely nails the message that the epic is trying to teach. "O Gilgamesh, where are you wandering? You cannot find the life that you seek. When the gods created mankind, for mankind they established death. Life they kept for themselves." Hearing this, Gilgamesh decides to ignore the goddess's message and carry on with his journey. After more journeying and a conversation with Urshanabi, Utanapishtim's ferryman, he finally finds Utanapishtim, and a storytelling section ensues, ending with our king being rejected by the man. Faced with the fact that life is limited and death comes for all men, Gilgamesh returns home with the help of Urshanabi, feeling sorrowful for his impending fate. Never mind the side quest of the actual immortality-giving plant that Gilgamesh ends up losing for a snake. It's when Gilgamesh returns to Uruk that he realizes that although he may die in body, his memory and spirit will forever live through the walls he built for the city. Walls that have offered protection and prosperity for his people. And so the epic concludes. The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of humbleness, but above all, one of life and death. It's a journey that teaches him the error of his ways by enforcing the death of a loved one, facing his mortality, and in the end, its acceptance. This is what we want to focus on. The various ways the beings of this story deal with death, and how they face life knowing that one day they will die. You may have noticed that I mentioned no palace in this story. That's because while we are taking inspiration from this epic, we are also creating a new instance in the life of Gilgamesh. Something that is not written in any of the tablets, but something that we believe could be possible during his journey in life. This palace is one that shares all of these stages of grief. A giant structure that encompasses the feelings left behind by those who passed through and feeds on the sorrow, fear, and hurt we feel. But at the same time, it's also a place of love. A place that reminds us that death may come, but life and love will exist along the way if we so desire, even if it's difficult to see. So the story we're creating for our game is original, but it does take roots in the epic. However, I'll leave that part of the lore for you to discover when the game comes out. Guys, rank my meal. I made some onigiris. Look at that, they look so pretty. Yeah, I had to film these during lunch, so I had no time to eat. And yeah, tell me what you think in the comments. Don't say anything bad about them because I worked really hard. And talking about work. From this point on, all the narrative mentioned is completely unique to our game, so you can expect a lot of good things. The workers are, as the title implies, workers. They are the people responsible for building this palace, and they take an interesting point of view amidst the game's story. José Saramago, please don't come after us. We didn't steal Memorial do Covid, I swear. They are almost like outcasts, people who do not have a main role in any of the stories mentioned, but are spectators of some of the events that transpired and have left behind messages of what they think. Unlike all the other registries, the workers' messages take a somewhat attached approach. These are people that do not have a full picture of everything, but what they have is enough to cause fear and confusion. They debate between themselves about the nature of the palace, its purpose, meaning, and morality. Is this a good thing? A demonstration of power? Something that will last for decades? Or is this proof that their king hasn't changed at all? The workers somewhat understand the gravity of what is going on, but have no power in stopping it. There is, however, one thing that they all have in common. They take no interest in what the palace has to offer because they do not believe the palace has anything to offer them. How dramatic. The common narrative themes in this section of the narrative are fear and dissociation, be it fear of the unknown or what they think is to come. They also portray the first aspect of dissociation we want to talk about, removing yourself from the blame. It's all fun in games until you realize that you're part of something that will bring so much tragedy to so many people's lives, even if not directly. And it raises the question, how would you deal with that knowledge? You help raise that wall. Had you refused, would it have ceased to exist, or would it have come to be anyways? Could you have done something more to prevent what you think is going to happen, or were your hands tied? Whether you believe you're to blame or not is something that each individual can only answer for themselves, but it's interesting to consider this aspect of dissociation as a means of self-preservation. A side note regarding the workers' messages is that they are written in cuneiform, so to understand what they're saying, you have to translate them. Gameplay plug. You can find a different range of messages left behind, be it work instructions, gossip, or warnings about what's to come. Is it a spoiler to say that the cuneiform at the end of the teaser trailer is actually written by a worker? I digress. Yeah. It's not a secret that British archaeologists have been behind a lot of archaeological discoveries over the years, even if sometimes not with the best means. In our game, it's no different. The British expedition refers to a group of British archaeologists who have found this palace before you did and ended up, you guessed it, as stuck as you are. Being that this place has been out of public sight until now, you can kinda guess what happened to them. Curiosity killed the cat. But bravery did nothing in this case. You learn more about this expedition through scattered journal pages that can be found throughout the palace's walls. These pages reveal the thoughts and rebels of people who, much like you, gave in to a thirst of knowledge only to be met with their end. They are filled with despair, hopelessness, fear, and regret. But above all, they reveal a dark side of the human race. They take the perspective of people who have been here longer than you have, the things they dealt with, and the fears they succumbed to. Sadly, they also deal with the many facets of death. In more ways than one, the tale of this expedition serves as a dark reflex of you and your friends and the possible fate that might slowly crawl over you if you're not careful. The survival and instinctual side of the human being slowly stains these pages as you learn more and more about what these people have become. And most interesting of all, the real reason they came here. I'm sure this is one of the ones you've been waiting for the most. At least I hope so, since it's the main story of the game. These are our main characters, the people we've been following from the beginning of the game. A group of colleagues who have become friends along the course of their, course, and have found themselves trapped inside this archaeological wonder, separated and alone. You, the player, play as one of these friends. Luckily, amongst the disgrace, you seem to be one of the people who has more free access to roam around the palace. Unfortunately for you, this has changed the whole group dynamic. The human being has a fun tendency to see and create patterns everywhere, even when they aren't there or necessary. It allows us to gain some stability over life and create a sort of self-assurance that we can control it even when we clearly can't. This also applies to friends. Being in a group of friends means more often than not having some type of role that allows you to understand what you're meant to do in that group. Are you the jokester who cracks one or two lines once in a while to make everyone laugh? Or maybe you're the one who cares for all your friends and makes sure that everyone is up to date with all that's happening. Maybe you're just a shy person who's quiet most of the time, but that also has the most wisdom to offer when the need for it arises. Each friend has their own role, personality, and problems, but what happens when you're forced to leave that role and go against something that you're not used to? You have read the warnings from the people who have crossed this place before, and you know what happens to groups who start to distrust each other. This is something we're keen on doing, to explore the limits and boundaries of human friendships and love and portray the different reactions they might have when placed upon dire situations. You call it sadist. I call it sadist. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet, but is truly vital to this game, is your partner. You begin this game entwined with another person, but you have lost their contact just the same as with the rest of the group. Where are they? Are they okay? Did they survive the fall? Or are they suffering? These are all questions imposed by the gravity of the situation. However, one thing is certain. This person is what matters the most. Or is it? Throughout the game, you learn more about the precarious situations of your friends and be posed with choices regarding their fate. Choosing incorrectly can lead into their untimely death, but it can also lead into a new piece of information regarding the palace you're in. Does it mean that killing them was worth it? This is where the big questions of the game come. Remember how I said you get to read about the slight dissociation of the workers who feel they have some blame for the palace? Now imagine that, but, 10 times worse. How would you react if you knew that the reason your friend died is because you decided to push a button? Would it be better if you knew you had no other alternative, or just make you feel like you could have tried harder to save them? And how worse would it be if instead of your friend, it was your loved one? This is where we circle back to the tale of Gilgamesh. The sequence of events after the death of Enkidu is something that I personally feel fascinated by. The reaction of Gilgamesh not only seeing a loved one die, but starting to decay is something that feels very natural to the human being. It tells us how much they loved each other and how losing someone you love might feel mind-boggling and unreal, even if it's such an intrinsic and simple thing. It's such a beautiful story with such a beautiful message and a testament to how we as human beings relate to the concept of death. How will the main character react to these awful things that were forced upon them? Strength? Despair? Dissociation? That's something that only you can figure out. Having to choose between yourself or your loved ones is not an easy thing to do. But what if they were characters in a digital game? Would it be easier? You've done it before, I've done it before, we've all done it. When I don't particularly like a character or they annoy me, it's much easier to disregard what happens to them. Hell, I literally did that yesterday with Mei Ling in Hitman Silent Assassin when the game was driving me crazy. It's all good fun in games, but it tells us a little bit of how we as players tend to dissociate from characters we don't particularly like or connect with. These characters are important to the main character, but why should they feel important to you? Do you really care what happens to them? They're not even real, just a digital person behind the screen. I won't dive any more into this because the video is frankly way longer than I wanted to, but it does take a part in our game and how we relate to characters. Will your dissociation with these characters distance you from their pain, or will they make you feel more than just indifference? We have been saying for a long time that we love your feedback, and that hasn't changed. So before I end this ginormous video, I do have a request. While we do have some already established ideas for this friend group, we would like to invite you to suggest your own about their archetypes and styles. Should we have a jockey or a goody two-shoes or even a tech bro? I don't know. Leave your ideas in the comments below. In any way, I would like to say that we do have a major plan sketched out, but it's never too late to change details in the narrative if the need arises. This video is more like guidelines regarding what we plan to do with it. And in case you haven't been bombarded by our social medias yet, we do have a Discord community server where you can leave your ideas and suggestions and ask us about the studio and the game. So if you want to join us, just join by using the link in the description. And please go watch our teaser trailer if you like what we're doing. I'm frankly too invested in this project and I would love to see it continue, but only as long as you're enjoying it too. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe so we can keep the engine working. And to the person who said they wanted shorter videos and more streams, we heard you. We are planning on making more streams in the future, but we do have some longer videos planned already, so bear with me. Now, if you don't mind, I'm gonna play D&D with the rest of the team. Toodles! A group of colleagues who have found a group of colleagues who have become friends along the course of the a group of colleagues who have become found themselves. Why can I not speak? Why? A group of colleagues who have become trapped. No, I become trapped and they found themselves trapped. He's not a quicker. Well, anything.